Hey guys, welcome back. As promised, I'm here to share how I put together my fabric folder. I've gone ahead and made two examples. I'll do a flip through of these, and then after that, I will do a demonstration on how I made them. For both of these projects, I've used Tim Holtz Foundations fabric line. I've also used his Provisions line, and those are the solid fabrics that you will see. So I'll go ahead and start with this one. What I love about Tim's fabrics is not only are they absolutely gorgeous, but you've got your collaged images already on the fabric, which makes for a really easy cover or page. For this cover, I've added the eyelet and the button. On the back, I've sewn on a pocket, and that made my cover super easy. I've also added these tabs, and the way I made those was to cut tiny little pieces of eyelet, and then I stacked them on top of each other and then have sewn them down. And I really like that shabby look for this particular project. And then inside, I've used this fabric for the inside cover. I've sewn on this tiny little piece of ephemera to create a little pocket for that tag. And then I've used the salvaged edge on this pocket. I really love that image on this fabric. I thought it went really well. And then inside the pocket, I've got this tag that I've made by collaging these fabrics together. And then I've got a piece of batting in between the fabric and this paper. And for this tag, I've just done some random stitching all the way through the tag to create that interest. And then this tag here, I've done a little hand stitching. I've added this tiny little tag, and it's held on with this snap. The way that I've added the snap was simply to poke a hole through the tag, and then I put the snap on either side, snapped it together. And then inside, well, first I'll show you this pocket here on the inside flap. What I've done for this one is collage these fabrics together with the eyelet, and I made it a side loading pocket. This tag was made from the scraps of fabric. I've got the eyelet on the side, and then it is backed with the ephemera. And then in the big pouch, I've got a couple tags. This one is the only one I've made from paper, and this is from the memoranda line. It coordinates with this fabric line. I've got the little word "Be Happy," a button at the top. These are all vintage buttons that I've used. And then on the back, I've got some ephemera and some design tape. This one is some more collaging of the fabrics and eyelet. I've got the little bee image again. I really love the bees. And then on the back, and then this tag in the window pocket, what I've done for this tag is layer the fabrics. I've sewn on some beads and added the pin. And then to add this little tag, I attached it by sewing around the tag, and then I just didn't cut my thread between sewing. So of course that attached them together. And then they're backed with the paper. And you can see I've done some hand stitching through the tag. And then this window pocket, I've got another tag where I've sewn down the embroidery thread. I've added the button and a pin, backed with paper and some design tape. The eyelet at the top. And then I really love this fabric for this pocket as well. And I've used the salvaged edge at the top again. You can see my tabs here. Added a button. And then this tag is from eyelet with the little bee image, backed with the ephemera. And then on the very back in this pocket, another tag. And for this one, I've just layered two pieces of fabric. You can see the pink fabric behind. And then I cut a window and added the button to the window, backed with paper. So that's this project. And then for this one, I've made this one for my mom. She loves the color blue and she also loves Tim's fabric. And so what I'm going to do with this one is add pictures into the windows and the pockets of her and my dad. And then I'm going to surprise her with it. And so what I've done for this one is I've collaged different fabrics that you might be able to see where I've done that. I've added some eyelet, done some hand stitching. I've added this button by just sewing that right to the fabric. I thought it went so well with this fabric. Same thing on the back. This fabric is so gorgeous. And then inside, I've added one picture so far of her and my dad. And this is them. They're so cute. And then I've pinned that picture in, or used this clip to hold it in. And then from that, I've got this little heart. That's from the Ideology Heart Adornments pack with a little ribbon. I've used vintage buttons. And I've got this big pocket here. And then inside, I didn't add a pocket to the inside flap because I just really liked the way that looked as is. But then I've got the big pouch here and the window here. And then on the back, another window. And then to this, I've added a belly band instead of adding a pocket with some vintage buttons, a little bit of the eyelet. And so that's this one. I really love this one. I love how it came out. I love them all. And then one thing I want to point out to you guys that I thought was really super cool is you can put this flap on the cover, which makes for an interesting cover. You know, you could put your artwork in that, or you could put pictures, you know, whatever in the window. And that really makes for kind of a cool cover. I'll show you with this one as well. I really like the way that looks. So that's kind of a fun, different thing to do with these. And so what I'm going to do now, you guys, is I will move everything out of the way, and then I'm going to get started and show you guys how I make these. Okay, so I had some technical difficulty. I went through and filmed the entire how-to process with this one, and then I realized I didn't have all of my video. So I'm starting again. I've cut more fabric, and I'm ready to show you guys how to do this. But first, I'll just quickly show you this one. So as you can see, I'm loving the flap over the cover, and this one I've cut quite a bit narrower than the others. There's really no right or wrong. I just did it for something different. And then at the bottom here, I've got this tab. And what I did for that was take two of the fabrics cut for the windows, put one on top of the other, folded it in half, and then just have sewn it right to the edge. And then inside, I've got a pocket, my window, another window, and a pocket. And for both of these, I've chose to use 3 different fabric designs or patterns of fabric. Both of these are Tim Holtz abandon line, which is my favorite. I love his abandon line. It is absolutely stunning. And so for these, both of these, I've got 3 patterns. For example, this one, I only used 2 fabrics, which was the print and then the solid blue. And as you can see, this flap is quite a bit wider, but it doesn't go edge to edge. And so that's something you want to keep in mind. You want it to be slightly narrower or a lot narrower like this one than your pouch. It just fits better. And so this is going to be just a basic on how I put these together. And of course you can change it up any way you want. So I'll go ahead and get started. Okay, there are basically 3 parts to this project. We have our cover, the pouch, the flap, and then I've cut some pockets. The way that I cut my fabric is I use a self-healing mat with a rotary cutter and a ruler. And I've cut this fabric to be 9 by 6 because I wanted the finished product to be 4 by 6. And the extra inch is just to allow for the spine. And so for the cover, what I've done is I've got a piece of fabric for the outside cover with batting in between. And then this is the inside cover. And as you can see, I've cut my batting just to be slightly inset from the fabric. And so what I'm going to do to start is I'm going to sew my pockets down to the fabric and the batting. And that way, when you go to sew these together, the batting is kind of anchored because you've sewn to it already. So I think I want my pockets to go this way. I'll put it like this. I want my pocket here, and then I want this pocket here. And I kind of keep them to the outside just so everything doesn't get so scrunched in the middle. And so what I will do is go to my machine, I'll sew these down, and then I'll be right back. Okay, I have my pockets sewn to the fabric and batting. And so the next thing that I want to do is put my cover on and attach these two together. So I'm just going to line these up as best I can. And I don't use any pins or clips or anything like that. I just kind of go for it. So you guys can do it however you want. That's just how I do it. And I found that the batting does help to hold everything together. It just wants to stick to it. So that does help. So now what I'm going to do is take this to my machine. I will sew all 4 edges so that we will have our cover done. Okay, so we've got our cover made. The next step is to work on our pouch, which will sit right there. And for the pouch, we need an extra piece of fabric. We've got the cover of the pouch, this fabric behind, and that is so when we cut our window, we have something showing through. And then I've got the inside of the pouch right here. And so next we want to decide where we want to cut our window. And something to keep in mind is you want to kind of think about where your flap is going to line up, because you don't necessarily want your window, or you might want your window showing, you know, so I like my window behind the pouch. So I'm kind of going to keep that in mind as I cut it. And the way that I do this is I just take the fabric, I kind of decide where I want the window, and then I just fold it in half. I want it to start about right over here maybe. So I line this up, fold it in half so you're cutting straight, and then I just start a cut. And then I just cut my window. And I don't worry about it being perfect. I don't really care. You've probably seen how cattywampus they can be. I think I'll go up just a little more. And then about to there, maybe a little more. I love these little scissors. They work so good for this. And that should be just about right. And then I will use this for either a tab or for some tags, but I just save those little pieces for that. And then here's going to be the window. So now I will cut one on this side, and then I want to go to my machine after cutting this window and stitch around these windows just to reinforce them. So I will go do that. I'll be right back. Okay, I have my windows reinforced by sewing around them. The next thing I want to do is sew this all together, just like I did my cover. I want to go around all 4 sides and sew it all together. Okay, we have our pouch sewn together, and I wanted to point out, see how the fabric is overhanging right there? I don't mind that myself, but if you don't like that, just take your scissors and trim it off. And so the next step is to work on our flap. And of course, it's going to have a window like these. And so because of that, we need to have a fabric behind, which I've got right here. And then I'm not putting batting in the flap. I realized it's not necessary, and I'll show you. With this one, it's just fabric. And then with this one and my first one, I put batting in this, and it really starts to bulk up when you start adding things to the pockets. And so I just decided I would rather not have the batting. But of course, again, that's up to you. If you like it, you know, you can do it, but I'm gonna do it this way. And so I'm gonna do this exactly the same way as the pouch, where I'm going to cut my window. I'm gonna go to my machine and reinforce that window by sewing around it. And then I'm gonna sew on all four sides and connect everything together. So I will go do that. Okay, so I've got my flap all sewn together. The next step is to attach these two together. So the way I do that, I fold the pouch in half, I line up these edges. I put this where I want it to fall, whether, whoops, I got it upside down, you know, whether up higher, lower, and I want it to be about right there. So then when I turn it over, I see where I want to attach it. You know, I got about that much room to work with. And so when I take it to my machine, I will just sew in a rectangle around, and I'll show you on this one how I've done it. You can kind of see where I've stitched. And so I will go to my machine, attach these together, and then I'll be back to show you how we will finish it off. Okay, so I've got my pouch finished. The flap is attached. Now what we want to do is attach the pouch and cover together. And the way that I do that is I just open everything up. I lay it in, kind of center it. I just eyeball it. And one thing I don't think I mentioned, I do cut my fabric for the pouch maybe 1/2 of an inch shorter. So you have kind of maybe a 1/4 of an inch on either side here. And that's just so it will be contained inside the cover and won't spill out. And then to find my center line where I want to sew is I use my Tim Holtz ruler, and it's got this 0 where you can kind of figure out where the center is. And then I just make a few marks, put my ruler here, draw a line. Sorry about that. I just realized that my camera shut off, but this won't be a problem. There are only 2 more steps to go. They're very simple. I'll go ahead and explain those. So you saw that I had drawn a line down the center of my fabric. I just went ahead and took that to my machine. I've sewn straight down the line which connected these two together. And then the last step is to close our pouch here. And the way I do that is I fold the covers back out of the way, make sure the flap is up, and then simply sew these two sides together. So that gives us our folder. We are finished. There's so many options that you can do with these. You can add a pocket to the cover, to the flap, to the back. You could add windows to your cover, inside or outside or both. You would just need an extra piece of fabric. And speaking of fabrics, you could use denim, canvas, muslin, add some lace. You can do some dyeing of your fabrics with coffee, tea, inks. You can add stamping, which I've done with this one here, to the blue fabric. I've just done some stamping. So there's a lot of ways to play around and make these unique and yours. So this is just the basics. You guys go ahead and play around, do what you want with these, and I would love to see what you make. If you're on Instagram, tag me. I'd love to take a look. And I think that I've covered everything. Although, you know, one thing I want to mention, you can add journals to the pockets on these. I've done that many times, made small journals, usually about 3 per book. It's kind of a fun way to mix it up. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I will be back soon. Bye, guys.